Hi guys, Olive here. Here today to talk to you about the books that I'm planning on reading in September 2022. Today I am wearing my favorite fall sweater because even though it's technically not fall yet, it will be soon. And that thought brings me a lot of joy. Fall is my favorite time of year. I can smell it in the early morning air, so I know that it is fast approaching. And this is the time of year when I like to transition from more summery books to books that better suit the fall season, more autumnal feeling books that I associate with this time of year. And that is exactly what I have done again this year. So let me show you some of the books that I have selected for September. As I have been doing so far this year, let me start off by discussing fiction. More specifically, I want to talk about the classic book I intend to read this month, and that's Shirley by Charlotte Bronte. This is an extremely long novel that stars two contrasting heroines who come from entirely different backgrounds. And this is a classic book that I've been meaning to read for several years now. I am a big fan of Jane Eyre, and I also really enjoyed Villette back when I read it in 2018, I believe it was. But I've not picked up anything by Charlotte Bronte since I finished Villette, which just feels wrong to me. So I've definitely been craving another one of her books, so I'm looking forward to reading this one. Another author whose work I found myself eager to revisit is Mary Sherratt. I was very impressed by Daughters of the Witching Hill. I did think Ecstasy was a little bit less successful, but I love that she writes historical fiction about lesser known historical figures. I'm always very eager to hear who she's taking on next. Her newest book is called Revelations, and it follows two female mystics in medieval Europe and a pilgrimage that one of them takes while carrying a secret book of devotions. I've seen this one be compared to Matrix by Lauren Groff, which I read and reviewed here on my channel last year if you're interested. But since I read Matrix around this time last year, it was around this time last year that book was getting ready to come out, I now associate Matrix with this time of year, and since we're coming up on this time of year again, I find myself craving it. I don't know if that happens to any of you, but it definitely happens to me where I read a book during one season and then I start to strongly associate it with that season. So I've been craving either something similar to Matrix or even a reread of Matrix. That book has really stuck with me. I swear I can still feel it like it's underneath my skin. So I'm hoping that reading this book, which seems to be in the same vein, and it comes from an author whose work I've enjoyed in the past, I'm hoping that it does the trick. It also seems like I just enjoy reading historical fiction during this time of year, so I've also decided to pick up The Lunar Housewife by Caroline Woods. This book is set in 1950s New York City during the Cold War era, and in it we follow a young woman who works at a magazine, and she's writing a science fiction novel in her spare time. She's also dating one of the co-owners of the magazine that she works for, but she starts to suspect that he might be working for the CIA. This one piqued my interest as soon as I heard about it, especially because it seems to have a book within a book, a novel within a novel element to it, and I am desperate to read more books like that ever since I fell in love with Trust by Hernan Diaz, which is a brilliant book that came out this year, one of my favorites of the year so far. So I'm trying not to set my expectations too high, but I will say I'm very much looking forward to reading this. And that's actually it for fiction for the month of September. I'm going heavy on nonfiction reading in September because in October, I'll be reading a lot of fiction to offset all the nonfiction reading I'll be doing in nonfiction November. I have a robot brain, so I'm trying to keep that fiction to nonfiction ratio stable. It all makes sense in my head. But let me tell you what nonfiction books I have on the docket for the month of September. It is currently back to school season right now, which means that it's the time of year when I start to feel like reading things that seem studious. And one of those books that I picked out for myself is The Word Detective by John Simpson. This is basically a guide through the dictionary, and it was written by the former chief editor of the Oxford English Dictionary. It seems nerdy and perfect, and I can't wait to dive in. But along that same back to school theme, I'm also planning on reading The Ghost Orchard by Helen Humphreys in the month of September. This is a history of the apple in North America in both an agricultural sense, but also just in a cultural sense, since apples carry a lot of meaning on this continent. The story of Johnny Appleseed, apple pie, or giving your teacher an apple, which is partially why I chose this book to read in the back to school month. But also I thought it was a really good fit for the month of September because a lot of varieties of apples are in season during September. Not my personal favorite apples. My favorite apples are Jonagold apples, and those normally aren't ready until the first week of October, second week of October, but I will happily snack on any variety of apple as I read this. Moving on to a more serious book that I'm planning on reading during September. This book I'm reading for an unofficial project that I'm currently working on to read through a bunch of widely read popular nonfiction books that I haven't picked up yet for no good reason. So the one I'll be reading in September is called Know My Name by Chanel Miller. Again, this is a very popular book. A lot of people have read this one, so you may know that this is a memoir written by a woman who was assaulted by a man by the name of Brock Turner, and her victim impact statement went viral online after Brock Turner received a shockingly light sentence. She wrote that victim impact statement anonymously, but in this book, she reveals her name and she tells her story. So many people have read this book and spoken about how powerful it is. I've even had some people reach out to me directly, personally, and request that I read it because they were so affected by it. So the time has finally come. I am going to read this book. I know it's not going to make for the easiest reading, but I know it'll be worth it. But now onto the final two nonfiction books I'm hoping to read during the month of September. There's one new release that I would really like to prioritize. I'm hoping I can get my hands on it because it comes out toward the end of September, and I don't know if my library is going to get a copy, but it's called This Is What It Sounds Like by Susan Rogers and Augie August. This is a blend of psychology, music, and memoir. It talks about the psychology behind why our favorite styles of music affect us in the way that they do. But then it also tells the story of one of the co-authors who is a very successful music producer. When I spoke about this one in my latest anticipated new book releases video, I got so many comments on this book. So it seems like a lot of you out there are as hyped about this book as I am. I'm really hoping I can get my hands on it. If it's good, maybe I'll consider giving it a review. And then finally, since during this time of year, my wardrobe gets darker, my lipstick gets darker, and I even switched to a more mysterious smelling perfume, I also figured I'd pick up The Emperor of Scent by Chandler Burr. This book discusses a biophysicist with an all-consuming fascination with scent and our sense of smell. He apparently has some pretty wild theories about our olfactory system, and the author was intrigued by him and his theories when he met this scientist randomly on a train. This is one of those books where I have no idea what's in store for me, but I am perfectly happy to just go along for the ride. So those are all the books that I'm planning on getting to during the month of September, plus any additional books that I'll be reading for my written reviews. And as usual, I'm just not going to talk about those until my review is done and it's posted online. It's out there in the world so I can share it with you in case you're interested. Until then, I just won't mention those books. But all the books that I did mention in today's video will be linked for you in the description box below for your clicking convenience. Any other links I promised you will be down there as well. And at the bottom of that exact same description box, you'll see links to everywhere you can find me around the internet, including Goodreads and Instagram, the two places where I'm the most active, in case you would like to keep up with what I am reading and writing about right now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.